Hello crafty friends, my name is Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Al. And in today's video, I'm going to be putting together my first set of cards using the November 2025 sheet load. I hope you'll stick around to see how they were made and get a lot of tips along the way. Welcome, or perhaps welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. Yesterday, I shared a look at the brand new SheetLoad of Cards printable for November 2025. And I also let you know that what made it super duper extra special, that it is a 6x6 pattern paper edition, and it is in collaboration with one of my crafty friends, Lihz of Sassy's LLC. If you have not yet already downloaded the printable, it is free to all subscribers for 2 years and then to members on a continued basis after that. You can check out yesterday's debut video, which I have linked in the description box below and will have as an end card at the end of this video. Not only is this month's printable super duper extra special, but it's also a little larger than normal. It is a 4-page PDF. The first one has the copyright information, and then the remaining 3 pages are your standard sketch, supply list, and cutting guides. But this month, I have included a 3rd page with a little alignment helper to get your scrappy strips just right on the front of your cards. And then over here on the right, I do tell you about some bonus digital papers that are available. To find out more about those, you're going to want to check out yesterday's video or stay tuned and I'll tell you a little bit more about those as well. As always on the 2nd of the month, my creative team is joining me today and sharing a look at their first sets. Not only will each of them be participating, but Lihz of Sassy's LLC also has a video today. To see what everyone has created, you're going to want to check out this month's playlist, which is linked in the description box below, and I'll have as an end card at the end of the video. Now, if you would rather hop channel by channel, I do also have a link list down there. I know that everybody would love for you to stop by, see what they created, and leave them some love. As I get into the process, I will tell you about the products and tools that I'm using, but as always, if I ever leave you with any questions, feel free to leave those down in that comment section below, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! For my papers today, I'm using the Autumn Floral Sampler Pack that I have available to subscribers. To find out how to download that, make sure to check out yesterday's video, which is linked in the description box below. Now, if you are a member, don't forget that you have access to the entire collection, and there are 15 different pattern papers. You will want to check out the membership tab or the monthly blogs to download the file. This printable calls for 2 6x6 pattern papers to yield the 4 cards. Now the sampler pack that I'm using does have 3 patterns, and I just chose 2 of those, and I'll keep that 3rd one for a later project. To give you some wiggle room when cutting, I did design the patterned area to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, and I'm going to start by, you can use the crop marks or just go where the pattern is, but I did trim this down so the pattern bled off all of the edges. Now, using the cutting guides, I'm going to cut my piece A's and piece B's, which I need 4 of each from this sheet. Now, if you have a pattern paper that is non-directional, you could cut some from the side, but I just use this later to decorate the inside of my cards. I'm going to start by cutting a 4-inch strip off my pattern paper. If yours does have a direction, you'll want to keep that in mind when making the first cut. Now I'm going to rotate that piece of paper and cut it into strips that are 3/4 of an inch tall. Now if you are using true 6x6 pattern paper, make sure not to do what I call generous cuts. You'll need to cut these right at 3/4 of an inch, if not a hair under. When you get down to the bottom, you'll see on my trimmer, I won't have room to hold it with my hands, so I bring in my Scotch removable tape and use that as a helper to hold the pattern in place while I make those last cuts. Do keep in mind while you're watching today that you don't have to remember any of these dimensions. You can download that printable in yesterday's video. While I work on cutting the second piece of pattern paper in the same exact way, I wanted to take a minute to recognize some special channel members. In the month of October, I had some of them earn their 1-year membership badge. So I would like to say congratulations and thank you to the members whose names are scrolling up on screen now. Thank you all so very much for your continued support. If you're not yet a channel member and you would like to find out more about the perks of being one, you can click on the join button below this video or check out the link in the description box below. Membership starts as low as $1.99 a month, and that will get you access to probably the most favorite perk, and that is the visual archive. It is a one-stop shop with thumbnails and direct links to all SheetLoad of Cards editions, and right now that is 75. Next, I'm going to cut CS1, which the printable calls for 1.5 sheets. Now, because I am doing something a little bit different for my focal point, I will not need the half sheet from here. Instead, I will be using the printable from Lihz, which she told you all about yesterday. So make sure to check out her video, which I have linked in that description box below. If you will be stamping or decorating your own circle focal point, you'll want to cut or punch 4 2¼ inch circles from that half sheet. This is also a great place to use some scraps. For CS1A, which are the pieces on the full sheet, I'm using an off-white cardstock, and I started by cutting 2 columns that were 3.5 inches wide. Then each of these pieces will get rotated and get cut into pieces that are 4 3/4 inches tall. Once those are cut, I brought in another 1.5 sheets of cardstock, and these are for the CS2 pieces. Now, if you don't have a scallop circle like this shows, you could definitely do a regular circle or even make the focal point a completely different shape. I'm going to cut CS2A first, and those pieces are from the full sheet. Just kind of like with the off-white cardstock, I'm going to cut columns first, except for this, it's 3 3/4 inches wide, and then each of those pieces gets cut into 2 pieces that are 5 inches tall. Now from the half sheet, you'll want 4 pieces that are 4 by 3/4, and then you'll have your 4 mats for your sentiment circle. Because it's much easier to hold this piece now and not have to use a removable tape, I started by cutting strips off the bottom that were 3/4 inch tall. Now since these do have to be trimmed down, it's a little more cutting because I didn't do the 4 inches first and then cut them, but I find for me this is easiest. Definitely find out a process or a way that it works best for you. For my sentiment circle mats, I'm going to use this scallop circle from Trinity Stamps Emergency Card Essentials Die Set number 1. Sara Lihz designed this for Trinity Stamps. How awesome is that? Next, you'll either want to get some card bases from your stash or go ahead and prepare those. For myself, I'm going to follow what the sheet load says and do top folding cards. So I cut my 2 sheets of off-white cardstock to 4 1/4 inches wide, and I could have just folded them by hand, but I do like the way they look when I go ahead and score and fold them. Now it's time to die cut the sentiments. In front of me are just a couple of the pages that you can get for free from Sara Lihz, and I liked this page because there were some standard kind of more serious thank you sentiments, but there's also some funny ones which I love. I did choose the page without the circles around the sentiments, and I grabbed this Scrappy Boy Cards die set, and I found the one that was closest to 2 1/4 inches. Now if you don't have circle dies, you could definitely cut these into squares as well. Although I'm only making 4 cards, I did cut out 5 sentiments because the pair at the bottom actually go together. I just think that is so funny. Now it's time to start assembly, and you'll want to make sure to read the special instructions and place those scrappy strips onto CS1A before you mat that piece. To help with this, I provided an additional page on the printable with a little alignment helper tool. Now I did go ahead and laminate mine like the printable suggests, and what I'll do is just keep it paper clipped right to my printable. If you don't have access to a laminator, another suggestion is to get out a piece of acetate or clear cardstock and keep that on top of your print while you're getting crafty. Before I start adding my strips to the backer, I wanted to add a little extra texture to the CS1A. So what I did is I used this leaf embossing folder to add just a subtle background. And here you can kind of see the difference between leaving it plain or embossing it. Now let me show you how to use the alignment helper. I start by adding a little tape runner to the back of my CS1A cardstock and remove just a little bit of the tackiness with my finger. This then gets placed onto the laminated sheet, and you'll want to put it right where the rectangle is printed for CS1A. Now I'm going to get out the pattern paper and cardstock strips that will be adhered to this piece, and I do like to go ahead and place them in the order that they'll be adhered onto the cardstock. When I was laying out this first set of strips, I realized that my Mulled Wine cardstock could also use some extra texture, so I used that same leaf embossing folder on each of those pieces. If you want your strips to overlap the same as is shown on the printable, you're going to start with the top one. So add some adhesive to the back, and then since you can still see the left and right of the strip behind your CS1A, you're carefully going to line that up at an angle. Again, you'll use the outlines that are on the alignment tool. Then all you do is grab your next strip, the second one down, and do the same thing, each time just angling them back and forth to fit that printable. While I am using tape runner for these pieces, it would be a great time to use liquid glue if you feel like you need a little more wiggle time to get your pieces just right. Now here's where you'll stop for now with those extra edges hanging off. You'll want to put together the remaining panels in the same way, and if you do want your cards to look slightly different, what you can do is start with the opposite pattern paper at the top. So instead of using the floral as my first strip, I'm going to use the more geometric pattern. If you don't have access to a laminator or don't want to mess with the alignment tool, you can also eyeball these cards. I'm going to go ahead, like the previous ones, place out my pattern paper and cardstock strips, and now what I'm going to do, I am going to place the first, middle, and last pieces first. So I'll grab my floral pattern paper, and then I try to eyeball at the top what the angle should be. I have the printable right off to my left side. Then I'm going to get the bottom one, in this case it is a geometric pattern, and I want the angles, or what is left at each opposite corner, to be about the same. And now once I have those first two in place, I'm going to take the middle piece or the cardstock piece and try to center that between those first two and get an equal distance in between. Now these do overlap a little bit differently than on the sketch, but what I do next is I take the remaining pattern papers, tilt them the opposite way, and try to center them between the top two and the bottom two. Again, they look slightly different, but this does work. Let me know down in that comment section below which way you're going to put your cards together. After all 4 panels were ready, I brought in a pair of long blade non-stick scissors, and cutting right along the edge of my CS1A, I cut off the overhanging pieces of the strips. The next step is to get those pieces onto their mats, and you could definitely do this by eyeballing it, but I do like to bring in my A7 Card Maker's T-Square from Pear Blossom Press and my magnetic glass board from Glassboard Studio. This ruler has 2 jigs, 1/8 and 1/4 inch, so what I did was I flipped the ruler upside down and I hold it in place while I add adhesive to the back of my scrappy strip piece, and then I use the guide to help me get that nice and centered. I have been using these helpers a lot lately, you might have noticed in my videos. If you don't yet have these tools, I do have some affiliate links in the description box below. While you're down there, if you are going to order from Glassboard Studio, I do have a discount code to save you 15%. Normally I go with 1/8 inch borders between my card panel and the card base, but this one is a little wider. It is actually 1/4 inch, which works out perfectly for the other side of this same ruler. So I will be using the same technique to help me get my card panel centered onto those card bases. I realized after I had a couple of these put together that I could have done this a little bit differently and maybe saved some time. Instead of placing my ruler at angles and doing each side separately, what I could have done is put the ruler so it looks like a T on my glass board, and then I could have put the 2 layers together on the left and then brought those over to the right to put them right onto the card base. So if you are going to do this and you have those helpers, I would suggest trying that. Next, I use liquid glue to adhere my sentiment circles to their scallop mats. The liquid allows me to have a little more wiggle time to get those nice and centered, and since I had my magnetic glass board out, I like to go ahead and put the magnet on top of each of those so there's a little extra pressure while it dries in place. Once those had time to dry, I added foam tape strips to the back of most of them, but the sentiment pair that goes together, I did not add foam tape to the piece that goes on the inside of the card. When you go to place your sentiments on the card fronts, this is definitely a time where you can make these cards your own and move your sentiment up, down, or wherever you think it looks best on your cards. I did go ahead and stick with the center like the sketch shows, and before I place that onto the card front, I did add some liquid glue on the back of the foam tape just so I had a little wiggle time to get that nice and centered. I did go ahead and move on to the second card front while I gave the sentiment on the first one some time to dry, and then when that was in place, I brought in the coordinating sentiment and added it to the inside of the first card. I think this is just a nice addition and adds a little surprise. Once all of those sentiments were in place, I did want to add some sparkle to the cards and bring out a little bit more of the orange from the pattern paper. So I selected some orange gems from my stash and added a trio around the sentiment. And here are some close-up looks at the finished cards. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I put together my first set of cards using the November 2025 sheet load and got a few tips along the way. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated. Now don't forget to check out all of the videos in the playlist by using the link in the description box below or the end card here in just a minute. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.